and welcome back to episode 6 of my Python crash course, where today we're going to be doing a quick review of everything I've taught so far, and we're also going to be really creating a more complete game. So in the last episode, I talked about functions and libraries, and I'll restate what they are. So libraries are a collection of functions that is somewhere else that we can import using the word import, and we can use stuff from those libraries by giving its name and then dot something something something. So NLTK, if you look up Python NLTK library, it will tell you this, but it will show you this, and it will say these are all the words that the dictionary has. They're stored in nltk.corpus.words.words and then open close bracket. And I also talked about functions and how functions are a lot like math, where we plug in a x value and we get a y value. This is our x value. It's called a parameter. It's just any sort of variable that we want. And in order to bring it in, we need to create our function with the def keyword, which means define, the colon and the indent. And then we want to use return, and return says this is our y value. So if this is our x, this is our y. And now a function can have multiple x values, or multiple variables, we call them, but it can only return one. Anyways, let's begin with a review of everything else. So the very episode 1, I talked about variables, and here how they're kind of like containers, and the containers have a name and they have a value. So what this one is called an array, and I mentioned it's a larger container with smaller ones inside of it. Each of these individual ones are called, the letters are called strings, and they can be 1 letter long or they can be 10, like over here. And we have 5 of them in this larger one called an array. We can also have something called a integer or float, basically a number. And in this case, since this one doesn't have a decimal place, it's an integer. And with integers, we can add to them here. So plus equals means take this value and add 1 to it. And we can also check if they reach a certain number. So we can check when submission count reaches 10. I also talked about conditions. Conditions are a yes or no question that we ask. And we ask the question by saying if, and if is followed by a boolean. A boolean is a variable that is yes or no. We can also ask it, give it this, so submission count equals 10. This is a boolean, or when we put it after an if, it is a boolean, because it's asking if submission count has reached 10. And if it has, it returns true, and if it doesn't, it returns false. And true and false are yes or no regarding that question, the yes or no question. And if it is true, and if the answer is yes, it does what's inside of this, whatever is indented and after that. I also talked about loops, 2 kinds, a while loop and a for each loop. A for each loop says, let's take a list or a collection or whatever, anything that's more than one variable. So this would work, for an array would work. And what we're doing is we want to take each of the elements inside it, and we want to set them all to be some variable word, and it's going to run this loop once for each variable, and a word will be assigned once. Word will be assigned every element in that collection. That is conditions and loops, and I don't think I'm missing that much. And I also mentioned how these can be found by going through a Python documentary where all of the Python functions are listed. And if you're looking for specific things, for example, let's say you didn't know what NLTK was, and you needed the dictionary for whatever reason, you can just look up Python library that gives access to a dictionary, or that gives access to math, a little foreshadowing for later on, that gives access to anything really. Python is a large and diverse language that has a lot of stuff to offer. So you'll find all sorts of different things. All right, we're here. Let's get started on the actual true game. What I want to do is, I showed the finished game, and the finished game had something else. What it did was, of these letters, it took 10 random ones, and it put them all into a list, into a letters list. So our words have to only use letters from that list. So I'm going to create a function that does just that. Remember, def, all lowercase, and we're going to do generate random letters. And we don't want to give it any value, we just want to generate random ones. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to take these, and I'm going to put them into here. And for now, I'm going to have it return letters. And what I'm also going to do is, over here, just to make everything work fine, is I'm going to say letters equals generate random letters. And if I hit run, everything else will work just the same. But here's where we're going to make something interesting. And I do want to mention, maybe a bit late to mention it, but anytime you make a change, make one small change, and then after that change, run it, see if everything works how you expect it to, and if it doesn't, look at what you've changed and see if you can dissect it like one by one. For example, when you're making this one, you're going to look at, all right, I've created it, it's under this name, and what is it doing? It's doing this, this, and this. Where am I using it, or am I not using it? Because if I just didn't have this, and I ran it and expected letters to exist, it won't, because we're not calling this function. What I also want to do is, I want to make a random group of letters. Instead of just doing this, I want to set these to be, I could do just any 10 random letters, but let's make things a little bit easier. I want to have 3 vowels and 7 consonants. So how are we going to do that? With another library. Random. You can ignore what's showing. We're importing random. What I want to do is, I want to grab letters. And instead of just setting letters to be vowels and consonants, I want it to be based on random. So I'm going to call it random.sample, open close brackets, and random.sample works like this. We need to give it a group to grab a sample from. And if you don't know what a sample is just a smaller group that's taken out of a larger group. And we want to know, how many do we take out of this? We want to take out 3. And what this does, it returns an array just like vowels. How vowels has A, E, I, O, U. This is going to choose 3 random ones. But we also want to add 7 random consonants. So random.sample consonants, comma, 7. All right, that looks pretty good. And we could leave it like this. But there is an optional one that I want to mention and then not. I'll use it. It's called random.shuffle. And random.shuffle, as the name would suggest, takes every element in an array and it switches their places around. So that, for example, if we go random.shuffle vowels and then check what it's listing, it might read O, E, I, A, U. It could read E, I, O, A, U. It could read U, O, I, E, A. It's going to be anything other than what it already is. Because if you shuffle and there's a chance to just get the same thing back, that's not very useful. And that's pretty much done. And everything, this still works fine because all it's doing is it's checking, is this word made up of letters in this group, except instead of just letters, we're choosing random letters. So let me add this here as a comment, generating random letters. Oh, shoot, I forgot. This should be a pound sign. I'm sure some of you just noticed I made that mistake. All right, what else do we want to do? We want to, why don't we make a function for maybe a bit much, but I kind of want to make a function for these guys, just to make things a little bit neater. So we are going to actually just take these out, and we're going to generate another make another function. And this is just to make things neater. It doesn't, same thing with generate random letters. It doesn't make things more efficient by any means, because a lot of these functions, we only use them once, but it looks nicer. It looks better when somebody else is looking at it, or when you're looking at it in the future. Because these names kind of say, all right, what is this function supposed to do? Oh, it's supposed to generate random letters. And commas do the same thing, and naming your vowels, or naming your variables correct does the same thing. These are all like healthy habits that building costs very little, and I'd say is worth it. Anyways, we want to define a function, and we want to call it calculate points. And what do we want to do? We want to give it the words. We'll call it word list. Actually, I'll just call it list to not confuse us with word list down here. And I want to put it over here. So what we're doing is that for word and word lists where we're adding up points, what I want to do is I want to grab the points here and then return them down here. And then over here, when asked for points, we can say points, calculate points. Open close bracket, and then we want to bring in our word list. And these kind of look boring, and I know you would, people would think that, and they are sometimes, but these are all the kinds of things that game makers in the real world think about. So whenever they're making a new game, the new Pokemon game, the new Zelda game, the new Halo, whatever, they have to look at game balancing, which means that the game needs to be fair, and they also have to look at game fun. So I could make it so that when you hit run, you instantly win and it shows a bunch of rewards. That's not balanced, but it's very fun. On the other hand, I could keep going, make this, 80 lines long, 100 lines long, 200 lines long, and make it perfectly balanced. But writing it is going to be boring, and the final game may also be a bit boring. So I want to do one more thing. Remember how I talked about the if-else, but I didn't use the else? Here is one of those moments that I want to use that. If word is, what I want to do is word.length. Let's see if I remember this. No, it's not word.length. It's len words. If the length of the word is, let's say 10, I want to add 10 more points. So I want to go points plus equals 10. Or not 10, let's do 20. Let's make it really rewarding. And then here, I want to go else, points plus equals length of the word. So every time for every word, it's going to check if the word is 10 letters long, it's going to add 20 points, and if it's not, it's only going to add 1 point per letter of the word. Yes, perfect. Is there anything else we'd like to do? I kind of want to make a few more checks here. I'll make one more check, and I'll leave the rest of the checks in the finished product that I'm going to put in the link of the description, or into the the description. I'll put a link there to my final good project, and it's going to have a bunch of the other checks, and you guys can read through it, or maybe if you want to add your own checks, like I don't know, up here you can generate or down here you can say the word has to include X, and then make it so that X appears every single time, just to make things more challenging. Or you can make it more rewarding. Let's say you add 2 points per letter up here, and then no jackpot. Programming, why I teach this, is because it's very fluid, it's very fun, and there's a lot you can do with it. So I wanna kind of share that bit of freedom with you guys. Anyways, let's check if we want to check X. If X is, or if the length of X is less than 3, break. Now what this does, not break, continue. And continue, I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but I'll restate it. Continue says ignore everything else that's happening during this current loop, and then go back to the very beginning. Yes. And so basically, while it's going down here, it has to make sure the length of the word is less than 3, and if it's not, then this returns false, so this doesn't happen, so it keeps going. And yeah, I don't think I'm missing much from my game. Again, the final one is in a link in the description. Though one more thing that's definitely important that I will add. If word not in, no, I checked if word exists, but if word in word list, or if X in word list, because I called it X. I could change it to be word, but I'm not going to. Why? Because I'm lazy. But yeah, good naming scheme would be changing X to be word or input, so that you can, or like, I don't know, I, so that if somebody else reads your code, or you read your code in the future, it looks nicer, yada, yada, yada. I'm repeating myself. If X in word list, what we're doing is we're making sure that somebody can't find this word. There we are, actually. And also giving them helpful information is pretty nice. We want to make sure that somebody can't just find a word and then repeat that 10 times and then they win. We also want to say word must be at least 3 letters long. There we are. So our checks currently are: the word must be greater than 3 characters long. The word cannot already be in the list. Remember, we're looking at the negative of these, because if these happen, the word doesn't count, we reset it. But if it's longer than 3 characters, and it's not in our word list, and it exists in the dictionary, then we're going to add it to our words, and we're going to keep going with the game. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to add right now. I don't want to make this too long. Again, thank you very much, you guys, for watching. I might make a few more smaller additional resources to help you guys. But I have finally completed my very own Python crash course, and that's a pat on the back to me. And Thank you so much for following me in this journey. I hope you guys learned a little bit of something. And goodbye. I will be back maybe tomorrow, maybe never. We'll see you. Bye-bye.